Well, he is a Bengal legend. He got his name included in Hall of Fame talk this past year, and he would certainly be a candidate for that long rumored Bengals Ring of Honor. Willie Anderson is with us to talk football and a whole lot more. Willie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on today.
Oh, thank you. Before we catch up with you and what you're doing now and your thoughts on the Bengals, I want to go back a little bit and just talk about how you got involved in football to begin with. Was it something that, as a kid, did you always play football in the neighborhood, in grade school? How did you get involved in the sport?
I was a late bloomer to football, actually. I loved it as a kid, obviously, as everyone did, growing up watching Walter Payton and Tony Dorsett and those guys. But I didn't start playing until about the age of 11. I had to trick my mom into signing me up at our local park down in Mobile, Alabama, called Trinity Gardens Park. But I was actually I was too big for my age limit. So the age limit that we started off playing was they call it a midget ball, and the weight limit was I think 140. So at 11 years old, I was like 6'1", 160.
Hmm.
So I was 20 pounds bigger than my age group for the midgets. So I had to play for the juniors, which was 13 through 15. And so my early process into football, I was dealing with teenagers, and I was 11 years old. So imagine an 11-year-old kid being around a bunch of rough 13 through 15-year-old kids, and it was a rough experience my first year, but it taught me a lot though.
I was going to say you had to learn fast, didn't you?
Very fast, on and off the field.
I bet. So when did it dawn on you that, hey, I might be able to make this a career. I might be able to do something with this football.
In the eighth grade, my high school, Viger High School down in Pritchard, Alabama, they were ESPN's first high school national champions.
Mm.
And so as an eighth grader, it was a real big deal about me coming to that school as an incoming ninth grader. And I was about 6'5", 275, and as a freshman. And I had a game on national TV where I got totally destroyed on national TV. When I say destroyed, I was a 14-year-old kid at 6'5", 275. I got destroyed by a guy named Carl Montgomery. Carl was only like 5'10", 228. I remember that because that moment stunned my life, to the point where he beat me so bad on ESPN that I woke up in the middle of the night, in my stance, in my bedroom, in my stance, sleepwalking, trying to block Carl Montgomery. And as a freshman on a very national ranked team, I struggled. But 4 or 5 games into my sophomore year, I was still struggling. And my head coach, who was the late great Harold Clark, he stopped practice one day, and he taught me some essential things in football about footwork that I still teach my players today. And he taught me to it. He taught it to me, ridiculing me in practice. Coach Clark was an old guy. He kind of like Elmer Fudd. He chewed cigars. He didn't smoke them. He chewed them. His face image was the image of Elmer Fudge. And he stopped practice one day and ridiculed me, but he taught me in practice. And I was like, well, why didn't you guys teach me this last year? And once he taught me that, the light bulb clicked on my sophomore year. And I won like back-to-back player of the weeks in Mobile County. And I tell kids all the time, I say, I went from being the worst player on the team, I thought I was probably the biggest, from the worst player on the team to probably the best player in the state. Well, one of the best players in the state. And then, my sophomore year, I was all state. Then my senior year, I was number one lineman in the country, number one player in Alabama. So I went from having a rough start, and it took having good people around me, good coaches, and a good environment to make me out to what I became in high school.
And that's what happens with so many players. It just takes that one person to believe in you.
Absolutely.
So you are in Alabama and you are a hotshot high school player.
Mhm.
What does it take for you to go to Auburn? In Alabama, you go to one school or the other. And a lot of people would have said, you pick the other. Why
Sure.
Auburn?
Most definitely. And in Mobile, you grew up being bred as an Alabama guy. Like I was a diehard Bama fan, from Bobby Humphrey to all these guys. Coach Gene Stallings came to my house, and that was a huge deal back then. Pre-internet. The Gene Stallings is in my neighborhood, in my house. I actually put Gene Stallings when he came to my house for my visit. An Army recruiter called me, and I think somebody told me, "Hey man, it's the U.S. Army on the phone." I said, "What?" It says the recruiter. So I went and grabbed the phone, And he said, what about the Army? I said, yes, sir. My brother served in the military, in the Navy. We kind of joked about that. And I said, well, but I respect the military. I said, but I'm gonna go play football in college. He said, you sure? He said, what college you going to? I said, I don't know. I'm trying to pick. He said, man, what are some of the schools you got? I said, Alabama, Auburn, USC, Notre Dame. He said, yeah, right. I said, bro, matter of fact, Gene Stallings in my house right now. He said, no, he's not. I said, hold on. Coach Stallings. Gene Stallings won the national championship that year, Alabama in '92. He gets on the phone and said, it's Coach Stallings. And the guy recognized his voice and goes crazy on the phone. I can't believe this Coach Stallings. Oh my God. And Coach Stallings said, yeah, man, Willie's going to be, a big time player for us. And we hoping he come to Alabama. But I chose Auburn because it was the other school. Because everybody wanted me to go to Alabama. And that was the hot shot thing to do. But actually, with Terry Bowden coming to Auburn, he's bringing a new and inventive offense into football that a lot of people were not running. It was called the shotgun offense. And I had friends of mine that went to Alabama, and Alabama at the time was a defensive school. They weren't putting on very many offensive linemen, and their offenses weren't that intriguing to high school prospects. They were a defensive school, and they ran the football a lot, but they won a bunch of games. Mm-hmm. I just thought Terry Bowden was bringing in a new and inventive offense. I thought it would be cool to come in, to go to Auburn, to kind of help Auburn get back on the map. Now, in doing that, I got destroyed. If it was the internet was around, it would have been a mess because people could not believe that I chose Auburn, who was 5-6 at the time, facing probation, which we didn't know. We didn't find out until we got on the campus that summer that there would be a 2-year bowl ban and a 1-year TV ban. Had no idea. Mm-hmm. And but it turned out great. My freshman year, we go 11-0 in Auburn and go 20-0 my first 20 games, and finally tied Georgia and lose to Bama my sophomore year. But it was a great big ordeal for me to choose, like you say, the other school other than Alabama.
So after your career at Auburn, you get drafted by the Bengals. You get drafted in the first round.
Yes.
Any player in college dreams of that day, of draft day, and you get to go to the first round. What did that day mean to you, your family? As you mentioned, that coach that believed in you back in high school, what did that mean to you personally and those around you, that your football dreams came true?
That day, I spent that day at my mom's, at the house I grew up in. I decided not to go to the draft because everybody couldn't go, which they were only offering I think 3 tickets to go. So I said, man, we'll stay home and have the TV and have the whole neighborhood come over and have, all my friends there, coaches. And it was a huge ordeal because everyone had been a part of me kind of rising up to that point. They saw my starts off in high school where I wasn't that good in high school and became really, really good in high school. They saw me in college and going through the 3 years at Auburn. So I wanted everybody to be a part of it. So to the fact where the Cincinnati Post or the Enquirer, they sent down a reporter, and the reporter was in my house. So watching ESPN that day, I decided, because I'm having a draft party, I'm outside, future first round pick, cutting my mom's yard. There was no limousines, no diamonds, none of that stuff. I'm out in Alabama, cut my mom's yard, and Tony Dungy called me. Phone ring. They had the 9th pick, and that previous bowl season, Auburn, we played Penn State in the Outback Bowls. We spent the week in Tampa, and I fell in love with Tampa. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my God, if I could just live here, it'd be the best thing in the world. I've never seen this in my life. It was beautiful. I said, I would love to play for the Bucks. And so when Tony Dungy calls my phone, I'm like, oh, yes, this is it. He said, Willie, we have the 9th pick in the draft. He said, son, he said, how would you like to be a Buck? I said, Coach, I would love to be a Buck. I said, I'm ready to go right now. He's okay then. He said, we got you. Because I figured we knew I was going to be a top 10 pick, and everybody in the draft knew the Bengals were not going to budge. If I was there, they were going to take me. They weren't going to trade up, but if I was going to still be there, the Bengals were going to take me at the 10th pick. The draft comes, boom. The 9th pick comes, I start sitting in my chair at home. Tampa trades the pick to Oakland Raiders.
Hmm.
I said, are you kidding me?
Hmm.
And so the Raiders picked a guy by the name of Ricky Dudley, a tight end out of Ohio State. Played for a long time. Good career. And next pick, 10th pick on the draft, like doing the draft, Mel Kipe and those guys do a little bit of talking before the pick is made. Well, the whole doggone draft knew they was drafting me. It was real quick. Up the Bengals, Willie Anderson, number 10, right here in the bank. Boom. And I was like, damn, I'm going to the Bengals. And when they called my name, people in my house jumped so much. You know, this way we was living in the hood, so they jumped up so much. Our house set on bricks, those old gray bricks. It's amazing to me how the house was even built like that. But for years, the house set up on bricks. The house, they jumped so much, they tilted my mama's living room.
Oh my word.
She was so doggone embarrassed. She was so embarrassed because the reporter from the Bengals, from the Post, he wrote about it. Oh, my mom was so embarrassed. She was so embarrassed. She was like, these people are going to see us national, like we just a bunch of country people down here with a tilting house. But everybody roared and it went crazy. And you know, I was drafting it. It was funny too because one of my high school coaches was one of the great players in the NFL, Robert Brazile.
Mm-hmm.
He made the NFL Hall of Fame in 2017, the class of 2017. Played at my high school, coached me in high school. He was Walter Payton's roommate at Jackson State. I dated his niece in high school, and I get to go to the Bengals, a team he had faced for years with the Houston Oilers. And he told me the first day on draft day, he said, hey, make sure you tell Anthony Munoz I'm your coach. Well, I said, who? He said, Anthony Munoz. He's one of the greatest offensive linemen ever. He said, but he know about me, though. You tell him. And the first time I saw Anthony, I told him. Anthony's eyes kind of bucked a little bit. He said, oh, that guy was a real deal. That guy was the real deal. So,
well, good. That obviously just made you legitimate when you could say that.
absolutely, absolutely.
As I mentioned, it has such a stellar career with the Bengals, and we could talk on and on about that. But just quickly, or if there's anything that pops in your head right now, what is like your most vivid memory of being with the Bengals? What really stands out when you look at your career with the Bengals?
Just being, you know, I put a stat up on Facebook yesterday or 2 days ago about the Super Bowl when people were saying the game was scripted and all this stuff. I said I played in about 200 career games in the NFL, and I said my first 7 years I lost a lot of games. You know, so my standout moment was just being able to persevere because I came in the 90s and I left in the late 2000s. And that team changed so much. You know, we my first year we came in, we were 8-8. I thought the world was lovely. I said folks told me the Bengals were going to be a terrible team. 8-8. We were one game away from making the playoffs. If we had won one more game, we would have been the Jacksonville Jaguars who went to the playoff that year in '97.
Mm.
My second year, we started off bad, but we ended great with Boomer. Went 7-2, last down the stretch, 97 with Boomer. I'm still thinking, oh, this is pretty good. From 98 through 2002 was a bad stretch, horrible stretch. And to me, my most memorable moment was the moment we turned it around, that I was able to stay there long enough to go through all the losing, all the laughing at, you know, all the years of not getting any Pro Bowl acclamations when I know I was playing really, really great football, but as a team, we were losing. So no one cared about a tackle who was doing really good at his position. So to me, the moment we turned it around, we had a bunch of new faces, but we had guys like Richie Brown, who was there at the Bengals the year before I got there. So Richie was able to witness that and to go through a winning season and go to the playoffs. And it wasn't many guys. I think Brian Simmons was still there, who came in '98, 2 years after me. So just being around where people started thinking of us as in the national limelight, man, that felt really damn good. I'm not gonna lie to you. It felt good because for years we were looked upon as doormats, and even as individual, if you were playing good at your position, no one mattered. It didn't matter to anybody. So to get that when I got older, you know, late in my 20s, to get that national acclaim, that felt good because we went through a lot And a lot of guys weren't around anymore to kind of see that, so.
That is true. That was a fun stretch, that's for sure. So let us fast forward to the Bengals of today.
Mhm.
I know that you watch them from afar. What do you think about the quarterback and how they're going to build a team around him? What do you think about Joe Burrow?
Obviously, the quarterback is elite among elite. I mean, we saw it in college. We saw it with what he had to work with this year, the things he was doing. Joe kept them guys in a couple. I mean, the Baltimore games was a blowout, obviously, but there were some games that we thought they had no chance. They had chances because he was making big time throws. He was taking horrific hits and still standing in the pocket, still keeping a great spirit about himself. And that reminded me of a young Carson Palmer. When Carson came in, we you could say we had a little bit of a toxic environment when he came in. But when he came in, he only knew about success and winning. And the only things he talked about were winning. Luckily for Carson, the Bengals had a good offensive line,
Mhm.
around him already set up. Carson walked into your ideal situation. Good running game. Everything was set up for Carson to go boom. Joe had pieces and he still need pieces, but what he was able to do and keep his spirit high, because as a quarterback, you're going to get so much credit. You're going to get so much limelight and attention. And to me, the really good quarterbacks, the great ones, they know. You watch Tom Brady. Tom Brady is always deflecting the limelight to other guys because he know in order for him to be great, he has to make sure those other guys around him feel great. The linemen feel great about protecting him. The running backs feeling great about, hey, I'm going to sacrifice my body to go pass block for you. The receivers making hard catches. Even the guys on defense knowing that if we get the ball back to a guy like Tom Brady or Joe Burrow, he's making magic happen. And so when that quarterback is a good guy, that starts to come off on your team. When he's a bad guy, it comes off too. But Joe Burrow is a really, really good guy, and those qualities and characteristics to me stand out on TV. They stand out from people you hear talk about him, around him, and you can just tell people love to play with him and they love being around him. So once the Bengals, decide to build that thing around him, like I always liken it to the way the Colts did around Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning played in a dome, so he had fast receivers. He had an offensive line with about two Pro Bowlers with Tariq Glenn at left tackle and Jeff Saturday at center. He had All Pro Hall of Fame receivers. But on defense, they put a defense in that dome that was a fast attacking defense. So when Peyton Manning gets you a lead, you got Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis. They come to eat your quarterbacks alive. So that team was built up for Peyton Manning to be successful. And I envision the Bengals doing the same thing with Joe Burrow.
Draft's coming up here in a few weeks. I think that if you ask most Bengals fans, they'll have an opinion of how they think the Bengals should draft. But of course, you're looking at it from different eyes. What do you think now that the Bengals have made a few coaching changes? What do you think the Bengals will be looking for if you see them building this team around Joe Burrow? Do they do it in the draft? Do they do it in free agency? And if they do it in the draft, what should they be looking for in the upcoming draft?
They have options, to do it at, I think two positions. The big thing right now on Twitter, all the fans are screaming about is receiver or tight end. I'm sorry, tackle, offensive tackle. You have the kid Panay Sewell at Oregon. You have the kid who's a lineman. You have the kid, last name is Chase at LSU. But traditionally, Mike Brown and the Bengals have believed in building through the draft. But I think there's so many holes. Like you got to obviously sign back either Carl Lawson or your DB kid.
Mhm.
I can't remember his name right now. But on the offensive line, though, you're definitely going to have to secure up those positions on the offensive line. But also, too, you have something where AJ Green most likely won't be back as well, too. So, do you feel like that a dominant receiver would be? Has history showed us that receivers are dominant in the top 5 picks, or have history showed you that offensive linemen, top linemen getting picked in top 5 excel? So what you need. If you're going to take care of the offensive line in the draft, you got to take care of your receivers spot probably doing in free agency or vice versa. So I'm just wondering because it is a new Bengals, it's a new time, but Mike Brown hasn't traditionally went through free agency to spend big money on linemen. He loved to give his own linemen big money, but he usually hasn't went through free agency to go spend big money on linemen. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they choose.
That it will. I promised that I would let you talk a little bit about what you're doing now. You mentioned about teaching footwork. Tell us a little bit about your academy.
Well, I started the Willie Anderson Lineman Academy in about 2015, 16, after my son got to college. And I started because during my son's whole high school career, I had parents asking me to help them out. And I'd never thought about training linemen. Actually, I had no idea how I would even train linemen. And I was so focused on, my son trying to be a receiver and DB and quarterback that I probably learned more about that in those 4-5 years from his 8th grade year to his senior year than offensive line. So when I started it, I started in the hopes of, I knew how parents feel about their sons making it to college. My whole goal with my son was to go to college with me not paying for it. And I started my academy to help kids like that, but more importantly too, help kids who probably were not going to be college offensive linemen. They just wanted to make their high school team. And I always felt like when I was young, I used to pray to God that why won't Michael Jordan or Oprah Winfrey just come down here to Alabama and just show us how to make it and become somebody. And, a lot of times your average kid never get a chance to meet people in my position and people who've done the things I've done. And they'll never have a chance to be around them a lot. So my kids are around me a lot. So I'm putting into these young men's lives a lot. Myself and my mother coach, Coach Murphy down here, Leander Murphy down here at CM Sparks Performance. We put into these kids' life just more than just sports. We give them big kids confidence. We give them confidence. We give them to making them be able to believe in themselves as athletes. And like I tell my high school coaches, I say, hey, don't think we're trying to take your kids or teach your kids something exotic. All we're doing is acting as a tutorer. The same way your kid would go to a math tutor for geometry, mm-hmm. they come to us to review what you're being taught, and we teach them a couple of different other things. I also work with a lot of pros and college guys, and I consult with the NFL, but we also have a recruiting service where we help these linemen also get found by college coaches, which is my most fun thing to do. I do know if I was doing pros specifically only, I'd probably be a national known company. But because I deal with high school kids, the national NFL media don't really care about any high school kids unless they're turned into big time NFL guys, which we had a couple of kids last year. Paris Johnson, who's now at Ohio State now. Paul DeChio is at Clemson. Kid Chris Morris out of Memphis that's at Texas A&M. Had those kids since the 8th grade, and to watch them grow and become what they became. They were 3 All-Americans, which people said they couldn't play football as 9th graders. So they kind of followed my path and did what I did. They became better as they became to train and got better mentally and physically and became, top guys in the country. So that feels good, but also it feels good to have a mom and dad come to us saying, hey, my son just want to make his high school team. Can you help him? And give him that confidence and that boost of keeping him safe as well too is one of the big reasons I started the academy up.
That's awesome. Pass it on. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, Willie, we wish you all the success in the world. Hope to see you back here pretty soon when the Bengals get going again. And maybe that ring of honor will have your name on it. Big Great. Number 71, Willie Anderson. Willie, thanks so much for being with us. You take care.
Thank you.